What's up, hikers and mountaineers? Welcome back to another episode of the Baada Summit podcast. And this is episode 10. So, yes. And today, our guest is Cheruiyot Kirui. Cheruiyot is an ultra runner, adventurer, author. I'm just going by your Instagram bio. And he's one of those people that do like the craziest of challenges, and we'll talk a lot about it. And and you're also the Salomon Kenya brand ambassador.
Yes, a Salomon Kenya brand ambassador.
Salomon, one of them.
One of them, yes.
Okay, so karibu sana.
Asante.
So before we get to like many of your mountain stories and all, so what do you do normally when you're not running or hiking or adventuring?
I have a regular 8 to 5 job. I'm actually a banker. So the mountains and all those outdoor activities are my weekend activities or during my annual leave.
You're not an athlete?
No, I'm not an athlete. I am hesitant to define myself as an athlete, but I'm an athlete because I do all those outdoor things. Yeah.
And so when did you start like this activities, let's say like of running, or when was your first hike?
Now I started, it's becoming a bit fuzzy, but the first time I ran as an adult was I think in 2010. I was gaining some weight. I used to live in Nandi Hills back then. So I felt like I was getting an utambi, and I didn't like it. So I would run a few laps around the block I was in, probably 2 or 3 kilometers. Then I came to Nairobi in 2012, and I stopped doing that because now I used to have to wake up early, go to work. So my weekends would now be for sleeping. So, but in 2013, I went to Loitoktok with a few of my work colleagues. So it was a boot camp, sort of, where we used to wake up very early. We do our own cooking and stuff like that at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro. So the mountain looked good. So coming back to Nairobi, I actually thought I need to climb a mountain. So in 2014 is when now I did my first mountain climb. Basically my target was Mount Kenya, but I did one pre-hike, which was Elephant Hill, the normal pre-hike for everyone.
Yeah.
Then I did Mount Kenya over the Easter weekend of 2014. That's when I started.
Was it like a normal hike for you, or you were still running the mountain?
No, it was a normal hike with a normal group of hikers. Those normal organized groups of hikes. So it was just a normal hike. My first time up a mountain in preparation for Mount Kenya. So I think also a little bit before that, I ran once or twice to just get into a good physical level of fitness as per the advice of the guy that's organizing the hike. So after that, we did the Mount Kenya during Easter of 2014. Then after that, I decided I wanted to climb Kilimanjaro. So in December 2014, actually on the 1st of January 2015, we were summiting Kilimanjaro. So it was actually a very good time to summit, seeing the fireworks in Moshi and Arusha. So I climbed Kilimanjaro at that time. Then in 2015, during it was the First Lady Half Marathon in Nairobi, actually decided to participate. For whatever reason, I don't even remember I decided to participate. But during the run, I actually saw a good number of runners. There's a gentleman called Davis Guittari. I don't know if you know him.
No.
Very fast gentleman. He now runs 2:39, those kinds of
2:39.
Yeah, he's the first guy.
But 2 hours 39 minutes. Oh, okay.
So I saw him. He had a T-shirt labeled Urban Swaras. He was running with a balloon. That's how Pesas run. So after that, after the half marathon, I decided to look up that club so that I'd run with people. Then I started running with a club in 2015. That's the Urban Swaras running club. And that's when it started going downhill. So I got exposed to now a lot of running and a lot of stories. So I didn't know there was such a big community. It wasn't a big community, but a vibrant community of runners and the kinds of things they were doing. So they used to have this Google group where people share stories of the runs they did. It was very inspiring. Guys would go run someplace, write stories, both locally and out of the country. And then what used to happen is that every weekend there would be a run, different parts of the city, and then once a month probably out of town. So it also exposed me to a lot of, the city and the country. And I think what it actually did to me, apart from exposing me to these running trails in the city and out of the city, it made me independent because you could go somewhere and just create a route from there and do a trail. So that's how I started properly running. So in 2015, I did my first marathon. Was it 2015? Nice becoming event here.
So you first started running to lose weight.
It wasn't even to lose weight. I can actually say I started running to be fit for the mountain.
Okay.
Because that's what happened. When I started now going to hikes is when I would try to run because I didn't have time to go for the pre-hikes.
Yeah.
So I would now decide to run a bit before the hike.
And then you joined Urban Swaras.
Then I joined a club. Now I became a runner.
Okay.
So initially I did marathons. My first marathon was a DNF.
DNF
meaning?
Is
did not finish. We went to Kakamega. I think it was to be my first marathon. Now, before I say that, there was an ultra marathon organized by the club. It's in Cheruiyot. So I did a 56 kilometer.
Oh.
That was before I did a marathon.
56 before 42.
Yes, but my plan wasn't to run the full 56 because you usually can do any distance, 20, 25, 30 and all that. But I ended up running a 56. And the following weekend, I registered for Kakamega Forest Marathon. So I went to Kakamega Forest Marathon. I finished dead last, which was very interesting.
Out of?
Actually, what happened is that it didn't attract many recreational runners, the full marathon. So it's probably, there were two recreational runners, me and another gentleman.
What exactly is a recreational runner?
Recreational runners are runners who don't run for money.
Okay.
It's not a career.
Okay.
So the others were elite runners. So of course, when you start with the elite runners, they just take off. You can't see them. At the point where the half marathon ended, I was all alone on the route. So I ended up being followed by what is called a sweeper. It was a GSU bus lorry, basically. So they would follow me. They ensure that nobody's left on the trail or on the route. So they followed me. I finished last. And it was a very, very bad experience for me. It was tough.
Mentally.
Mentally and physically. I think I'd also made a mistake. After the 56 kilometers in Karatina, I donated blood the following Monday. So I thought I would recover by that Saturday. The Kakamega Marathon was on Saturday, so I thought I'd recover. Apparently, my mathematics was wrong. So I suffered a lot. Anyway, so after that is when I did marathons. In 2016, I did Standard Chartered, I did Kilimanjaro, and I did Victoria Falls. So that's the year I really did marathons. I did 3 of them. And then at some point along the route, because as I told you, guys used to share a lot of their stories on the running club. So I would see people run some interesting races. There's a gentleman called James Walieula. I think his stories are the ones that really impacted me. He's actually the first Kenyan who did the majors, 6 marathon majors. I think you know them.
Boston,
Chicago, New York, London, Tokyo, and Berlin.
Okay.
And then he did Comrades, which is a 89, 90. I don't know the distance exactly, but I think 90 kilometers run in South Africa, and another 56 kilometers. So when he used to write about his runs. So when he did the 56 and the 90, I realized that things called ultra marathons. And when I get interested, I usually read a lot about them. So I read about ultramarathons. And 2017, I did my first ultramarathon. Official ultramarathon. I had done this one 56. I did another one around 60. But then the official one was in 2017 in Poland. What happened is that I decided to run Berlin Marathon 2017. And then a week later, I ran a 96-kilometer ultramarathon in Poland. So that was a mountainous run. It was actually my first run on mountains. So what happened is that in my preparation before Berlin, I wasn't very fit. I'm actually prone to injuries. So, and marathons, you have to put in a lot of...
what kind of injuries?
All of them. Running injuries. Shin splints, ITB. I'm sure you know them.
I don't know.
And then you don't run.
I don't run. I just like walking, hiking.
Yeah, so there are common running injuries. One of them is ITB. It's called iliotibial band syndrome.
Okay.
It's on the side of your foot up to the knee. So that one got me in 2016. It put me out of action for around 3 months. 2017, it was back. Then shin splints, usually on the inner, part of your leg, of your lower leg. And almost all of them growing injuries. Knee, I got a bit of injuries. So my build up to the Berlin Marathon in 2017, I wasn't very fit. So in fact, most of my training I did on stairs. I would run up and down stairs because you can't get injuries on stairs mostly unless you fall. So I did Berlin. That was in September. I was going for a sub 3. I just made it. I did it in 2:59:22, something like that. So I just made it into the sub 3 club.
That's a big deal.
Yes, it was a big deal. And then what I decided is that since the visa to that Schengen visa can allow you to visit 26 countries in Europe, I decided I didn't want to waste that opportunity. After Berlin, the only other reason I would allow myself to stay there for longer was to register for another race. So I registered for a race a week after Berlin. So the race was in Poland. Actually registered for one. It was 96, 131. Then there was a bigger one, 300 and something kilometers.
Wow.
So I registered for the 131 kilometers. But clearly I was not ready for it. So I ran properly until I got to around 60 kilometers. So I got to a turn off where the guys of 90, 95 were going one way and the guys of 131 the other way. I decided to take the 90-something kilometers. It was a tough one. It was my first experience on a mountainous race.
Right.
So that was 2017. Then, am I talking too much fast?
No, you're good.
So that was 2017. Then I think I got hooked. After that 96 kilometers, I really got hooked on the ultramarathons because it's now more interesting than the marathon.
What
marathon,
makes it more interesting?
You got to experience more. Most of the ultramarathons are on trails, beautiful places. Actually, for an ultramarathon to sell, it's usually at a beautiful location, which is generally not roads. Of course, there are a few ultramarathons on roads and, I'd say boring kind of trails. But most of them that sell are beautiful, And it's you get variety. You can run, you can walk, you can stop to eat, As opposed to a marathon where when you start, you're looking at your watch. I need to attain this time. I need to maintain a certain kind of pace. So it's I find marathons to be really tough. So when I experienced the ultramarathon, I think I got hooked, and now I disengaged from marathons. So after the 96, of course, I was untrained. I decided I wanted to do a 100-miler. So
160 kilometers.
Yes.
Wow.
So along these processes at some point, because I told you guys used to share stories about their runs outside the country, I decided I was also going to now try and visit a few places. So my main idea was I would try to run in a different country every year. So once a year, I'd probably now try to run in a different country. So 2018, I decided I was going to run a 100-miler. So I chose one in the US. It's called No Business 100.
Business 100.
Yeah, but before that, I ran Chicago Marathon. So I did the same thing. Chicago Marathon this
Then
weekend.
1 week later,
Then 1 week later, I did the 100 miler.
And how do you recover?
You don't really. I mean, it's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal because a marathon doesn't really, impact a lot on your body. It's only 42 kilometers. Sorry. Plus, I don't go as fast as the Kipchoge's
Athletes.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm able to recover much easily.
Okay.
So I did the Chicago Marathon. Then a week later, I went to do the No Business 100, which again I was not properly prepared for because of injuries in the build-up to the marathon. But I finished, so I was happy with that. That was now my first 100 miler. 2019. I was to do another 100 miler or some kind of race because I didn't feel like I did well in the 100 miler for No Business. So initially I started preparing for 100 miler. Then I started reading a lot about ultramarathons. So I stumbled upon an article about, it was like something like the 10 toughest ultramarathons in the world.
Okay.
So of course I got hooked. I read. I was just reading.
What's the number one?
Okay. I think the jury is out there. People will rate them differently, but that was according to one of the people who decided to do their own ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So among them, there are quite a number. There's usually one in the US called Badwater. There's another one in Canada. I think it's called Yukon something, and a few others. But one of them really interested me. It's called the Tour de Giants, so Tour of the Giants.
Tour de Giants. Yeah, I was wondering how to pronounce that because...
Yeah, I don't go with my pronunciation. It could be wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, so...
Tour?
Tour, Geants.
Tour de Giants.
Yeah, in English it's Tour of the Giants.
Okay.
Yeah. So after reading its story, it was very interesting, not because it was one of the hardest ultramarathons, but because it was really beautiful. So I watched a few YouTube videos. At that point, I was still not interested in doing it. I was just now curious because it really looked stunning.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Italian Alps. So at some point, I just decided, well, why not do this? But even before I decided, I'd read many stories of people who had done it and how they had prepared. Many had prepared for 5 years. They heard about it. Then they went through, build up, do a 100 miler, do a mountainous race. Because the way it was advertised, that it was 356 kilometers, which is not the problem here. Mm-hmm. But now the other matter was the elevation gain. Mm-hmm. It was up to 27,000 meters elevation gain,
wow.
Which is a big deal.
So you're to run 356 kilometers in how many days?
The cutoff time is 150 hours.
150 hours,
yes.
Okay.
So before I knew what was happening, I decided I was going to do it the following year, which was 2019.
Okay.
So I registered, and that's one of the races which are expensive. So I registered. I never paid so much money. It came to around, probably in Kenya shillings, around 90,000, just race fees.
90,000 to go run.
Yeah, that's you've not added your other costs, flight and everything.
Yeah.
But I felt it was worth it, so I registered for it. And you see, once I'm the kind of person, if I invested in something like that, I really have to see it through. So I informed one of my friends, Victor, I was going, so he was in. So the two of us went for it in 2019.
Yeah, I was reading about the Tour de Giants. I hope I've said it nicely. And then I was seeing like many people get injured doing this race, like broken limbs.
Yeah, it has some very technical places. I would get very scared because you would get to on top of a ridge, look down the other side, it's almost vertical. And it was scary. It was actually scary. I think I have fear of heights. So it was actually scary. Yeah? But also, depending on how you're moving, someone actually died at some point.
At the time that you...
No. I think the previous year.
Okay.
Someone has died during that race. They fell and on such a technical place, and unfortunately passed on.
So before
it's dangerous.
you do the run, and you know all these risks and all, what's going through your mind at that point?
I don't know. I actually never concentrate on the risks.
Okay.
You see, running is not really an extreme sport. So if an accident happens, it happens. Some people even die on marathons. I mean, it's something that can happen for whatever reason. So, but that one is very technical, such that when you now get to such a point, you're very careful. You have to be very, very careful, especially at night. And you see, at night, you look at, you see lights going down. You're looking down like this. Where I'm actually pointing, you see lights going down.
Vertically 90 degrees.
Yeah, and you get scared. You feel like you don't want to go down.
So for such a race, it's considered the top 10 hardest races. How does one prepare for such an event?
Now,
how
for me,
did you prepare?
The training had to be intense. So in 2019, I think I've never done so much training. And now the funny thing is that when I was training for the Tour de Géants, I didn't get injuries. When I've been training for these marathons, which are 42-kilometer runs, I get a lot of injuries. But the reason is my training for the TDG. I'll call it TDG from now.
That's easy to say TDG. Okay.
So while training for the TDG, you see, all my training was never on flat surface, tarmac and those kinds of surfaces. I would go to the mountains mostly. Of course, once or twice I'd run in town in the normal trails, Karura. But most of the times I'd go to the mountains, probably Longonot, Table Mountain or the Aberdares.
And how many months did you start before the event?
Now, I registered a year before.
Okay.
Now, to get in is actually very hard.
Okay.
We were lucky because they have a quota system. And the field maximum participants have to be around 900. Usually there are around 3,000 to 4,000 applicants. Mm-hmm. But they have a quota system such that each country is given a limit. Mm-hmm. So the minimum is usually 2 per country. In fact, I had a bit of tension at that time when I was registering for it, because by the time the registration closes, of course, if you are only 2 people in a country who've applied for it, you're both going through. But if you are more, then some way they'll have to choose one of you in some way. I don't know how they do it. It's not about times, because you've not done any such race, all of you anyway.
Yeah.
So I was a bit jittery when waiting for the window to close. Of course, I don't know why I was jittery, because I don't believe around 10 people in Kenya would have applied, but anyway, I was jittery. So when we got in, I was very happy. So from then on, started training. So that was in February 2019. Mm-hmm. Of course, now one thing that I came to learn at that point is that you don't get a lot of information on what kind of training to do. So most of it was improvised. And also I realized everything you read about will be very Western. So there would be no local information that you would put to good use. So anyway, we improvised. We did a lot of training on Longonot, Aberdares, and Mount Kenya. At that point, we had also started going to Mount Kenya, doing the one-day kind of climbs up and down.
And what specific training? Like Longonot, maybe is it just going for a one-day hike?
No, Longonot, I'm not a big fan of going up and around Longonot. Mm-hmm. Most of the people I ran with like that. Kina Victor, Kina Limo, don't even Limo likes that, but most of them like that. For me, what I usually do, if you've gone to Longonot, there's that section just before the rim. Yeah. So just before the rim is the steepest section, which is a bit elongated. It's around 400 meters. Mm-hmm. In that 400 meters, you gain 100 and something meters in elevation gain. Mm-hmm. So what I usually do, I go up to the rim, then do that reps. I do the reps, then I go down.
How many reps?
I think the most I've done is around 50 reps.
50 reps.
Coming to around 5,000 meters elevation.
Of the same
Yeah, it's very boring. But now what it does, it builds up your mental strength, I think, mental capacity, because some of these races is more mental than actually physical.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a strong guy, so I'm not the kind of person who will outrace you. But I think most of them really require big mental, capacity to handle especially the long times on the trails. You are at kilometer 5 and you're going to 200 kilometers. You can imagine you start counting down, you'll never get to the end of it.
Yeah.
So those kinds of training helped me a lot on the mental aspect. So I'd be there probably around 10 hours, sometimes 11, 12 hours.
50 times on the same section.
Yeah, it's not nice.
And then the Table Mountain.
Table Mountain, I think the most we did was 4.
Up and down to the summit 4 times.
Yeah, 4 times, which is around 4,000. I like Table Mountain because in 5 kilometers, you gain 1,000 meters of elevation, which I've not found anywhere else in Kenya, unless you know any other place.
Elephant Hill?
No. Elephant Hill? No.
Elephant Hill, 5 kilometers.
In 5 kilometers.
Elephant Hill is 9 kilometers.
In 9.5 is where you get 1,100 or something.
Yeah, you're right.
So in that 9 kilometers, that elevation gain you've gotten in 5 kilometers in Table Mountain.
Yeah.
So that was the reason we would go back to Table Mountain a lot of times. It was a very good training ground. Also, I would now peg it on the kind of elevation, because in TDG you're getting 27,000 meters elevation gain.
Wow.
In 300 and something kilometers.
Just 150
So I'd look for a
hours.
place where the ratios would be almost the same. And then the technical nature of the trail there would now equate to Mount Kenya, the rocky sections, especially when you're going up the summit, even the slower sides, for example, on Naromoro, where it's a bit technical. So we would do that also a bit. And by the end of it, also I did a lot of stairs, which is now worse than Longonot. I was working in a building where I was on 18th floor, and I would do 6th to 18th floor. Initially, I used to do it wrong. I would go up the stairs, go down with the lift, up the stairs, go down the lift. By the time I was on the 5th rep, I was drenched in sweat. So any other people getting into the lift would look at me. There's a guy in shorts, is drenched from head to toe. But anyway, stairs is tough.
Yeah.
I do sometimes up to 20 reps.
20.
But I realized I was doing it wrong at some point, and I started doing up and down.
Okay.
Now, stairs going down is even more important than going up. Going up is good. You're building your strength and all that. Going down, you're working now on your downhill, which is more important than going uphill. I realized this after the race.
Okay.
So anyway, at the point where we went to TDG, I was quite okay.
You're fresh mentally, physically?
Yeah. Of course, it was a whole adventure. It was a whole big adventure. I think it's the biggest, one of the biggest adventures. It's usually hard now to define which is the biggest adventure I've done. But it was very, very, very interesting. It's a race I would go back to any time. So I managed.
So like TDG?
Just below the 150 hours. So I think I got injured at some point, but my injury was just because of improper training. It's not really impact injury. I didn't fall or anything. So I did a lot of literature after that, and I realized it was probably stress fracture. But the last 3 days were really hell. It was tough. You are in so much pain. You're afraid to be caught up by the time, because at every life base and aid station, there were cut-off times. So if the cut-off time at a certain aid station was probably 120 hours, and you are there at the 120th hour, then you are basically disqualified.
How exactly is the race set up? So you leave Kenya, you go to Italy. So these ultras.
So this other
one
was now in that northern town of Italy.
Yeah.
That one is very accessible, actually. Comayo is very accessible. Because now I flew into Geneva, then I took a bus. So Geneva through France and into Italy. So one of the advantages of these things is that now you get to see more places than you would even see. Anyway, so you get there, you do the normal registration. You have to have Now, such races, you have to have mandatory gear, which are very important for your survival. If you don't have some of those things, then you're putting yourself in danger and also putting other people into,
Like what?
Many things. Okay, for example, the gear, like you have to have proper rain gear, proper, gear for the cold.
Yeah.
There was a point in the race where it was extremely cold. I had my proper jacket, my proper rain gear, but it was extremely cold, and you get to a life base at night at 1 a.m. If you didn't have those kinds of things, you can even probably, get hypothermia, and you'll have to be evacuated. You'll have to get choppers up there because they're also remote locations.
So like this, they're like checkpoints where you get
you get food, or you can rest, you can take a nap. But generally also now for that kind of thing, you may get injured, you may break your leg somewhere up there. So you need things like a survival blanket, which is basically an aluminum foil. So you cover yourself and you don't lose body heat to the environment. So by the time you are evacuated or rescued, you've at least kept yourself, alive. So you have such gear which are mandatory, so they need to be checked by the guys manning the stations and maybe the race organizers. So that's probably also done even the day before the race and even during the race. So there are those kinds of preparations that you need to do. In fact, to prepare for such a race, physically, it's a big percentage, but not as big percentage as also the gear. Because at that point, you also learn a lot.
What's good gear and what isn't?
Not even what's good gear. This gear you've never heard of.
Okay.
So like in their specifications, I remember one of the things was you needed waterproof jacket. And they specify 20,000, it's called what?
Oh, to resist maybe when they
there's some sort of specification, 10,000, 20,000. So of course we have waterproof gear that we buy from Kikomba and everywhere. So when you go to Mount Kenya, you have a waterproof gear, or you have what's called a poncho. You can't go with a poncho there because it doesn't fit the specifications.
Okay.
So most of those things we not even buy locally. I'd have to buy off Amazon and ship to Kenya. So it was even very expensive just to get the gear. But yeah, at the end of it, that's the kind of gear that also you can stay with for a long time. So it's still worth it. So am I going off topic?
No, you're good. I was like, before the race, do you go like wanting to win or?
No. Never. Actually, for me, another reason why I stopped doing marathons is because marathons, and that's me, there are people who thrive in marathons. For me, I find it to be too tough because you have to keep improving. And you can compare the next marathon with the previous one. So, as I said, I did Berlin. Berlin, I did 2:59. Is it 2:58:22? 2:58:22. So, the following year, I went to Chicago. Naturally, I'd have wanted to beat that time, probably go to 2:50. Chicago, I did 3:20 something. It was a slower time. And you'll, of course, feel like you didn't really perform as, You go to the third one, you can actually easily compare them. Now, for ultramarathons, none is comparable to the other. The 100 mile I did in the US, I did it in 33 hours. I can never do another 100 miler and compare it with that. But if I do 32 hours, I've better the one for
different
that. They're totally different.
Different location.
Different elevation gain, different climatic conditions. So you can treat each race in its own, uniqueness. So you're actually going there as a tourist. Me, I'm a running tourist. That's what I usually say. So I don't have the pressure of position. Yeah.
Bora umalize.
Bora nimalize.
Yes, cha muhimu.
So yeah, I don't have that one is a good point. But now the idea is also, you see, like for TDG was very specific in terms of how most of them are anyway. It's very specific on how much time you should take on the trail. So there's a cutoff time. There's a cutoff time for the end, and there's usually interim cutoff times for each place along the race. So in fact, that race was like a navigation because you go with a map and you keep referring to, now I'm at this aid station at 270 kilometers. What's the cutoff time? You look, it's like 120 hours. You look at your watch, I'm at 118 hours. So you have to keep, checking all those kinds of things.
Place at this specific time.
Yes.
Leave after
there's actually a time for getting there, a time for leaving there.
Yeah.
So it's usually like that, especially now those longer races. The smaller races are just a cut-off time, probably 10 hours, 12 hours, you know.
And how is the vibe with other runners? Do they help each other? Is it everyone who's just focused?
Now, that's the other thing. It's not very competitive in nature. You're not really competing against people. In fact, guys will... I remember doing the 96 kilometers in Poland. At some point when I was already walking the entire thing, even the downhills I was walking, the flats I was walking. So a guy came up to me. He was from where? I think Hungary. He actually slowed down. He was very fast. He slowed down, walked with me the entire time. Then when I decided to take the 96, he decided to go the 131. So I was asking him, why did you decide to waste a lot of time? It was around 2 hours with me. But I mean, there's that kind of non-competitiveness. Of course, there's few people who will now be going for the win. There are some ultra runners who go for the wins. But most people, they're just probably enjoying themselves.
Yeah, okay. And speaking of TGG, like when I was describing, you're an author. So you wrote a book about your experience.
Yes.
Did you like when you and this is the book?
That's the book. Now you know, I think what has happened to me over the years since 2013, the outdoors has really exposed me. When I started the hiking in 2013, I was a regular guy, go to work 8 to 5, weekend probably on Friday, have a drink with a few of my friends. Saturday, wake up at 1 p.m., those kinds of things. Same Saturday and Sunday. But now when I started running, especially after I joined the club, the running club, Urban Swaras, I think I got really exposed. The first thing that I got exposed to that I can go out of the country to run, and I'm paying for it. It's not that I'm rich, you know. So I ended up realizing I could actually afford these things, yet I don't even pay for myself to go on a holiday. Ati ya Naivasha, sijui ati Mombasa. I wouldn't do those things. But yeah, it exposed me to feeling like I could actually go into these things. One other thing is that I told you people used to share their stories. And that's what kind of motivated me. Then I started writing. I also started sharing my stories. We would go to run in different places. Like I like going to Flosspa a lot. I don't know. You know Flosspa?
Flosspa.
Cheruiyot Valley. I think, I'm not sure, but I think that was the first story I wrote. Now, one of the club runs was there. You ran from a very low altitude of 1,100 meters all the way to 2745 meters, which is in Nyaru. You know Nyaru? That's around where Kipchoge trains. Kipchoge trains at around 2,400.
Elliot.
Yeah. So it is a relentless climb of 23 kilometers. And you're just going up, switchbacks. So I think that's one of the times I decided I'm going to write a story about it, because it was very tough for me. I like writing about things that don't go well for me. So I wrote one of those. Then I shared with the group. Then I started writing a little bit more, just sharing those stories. Before that, I never used to write at all. So over time, I realized I could probably share my stories in writing. I'm not a good storyteller verbally. So anyway, so at some point, we even started a club newsletter. And I think I was the editor at that point.
For Urban Swaras?
Yes. And I kind of still wrote. So I think people were used to reading my stories. So when I would go for a run, I'd come back, write the story, share it to the club and other few people. So when I did this, and all of those others I've told you about, I wrote about them just in PDF, and I share them on the Google group. So when I did this, there was an expectation that I should write about it. Of course, I also expected to write about it.
Okay. So it's the name of the book is An Ultramarathon Stories of the Tour de Géants, a 6-day, 356-kilometer foot race in the Italian Alps by Cheruiyot Kirui.
Yep. So actually, this book is it was an accident. Anyway, I started writing the story. As usual, I do my PDF pieces. Now, at some point, I felt it was going to be a bit long, so I wanted to serialize it. Do the first part, share it. Do the second part, share it. Do the third part, share it. Mpaka nimalize, probably 4 or 5 times. But at some point, when I was writing it, I thought it could be a book. I just do the entire story, put a cover around it, becomes a book.
And
it became a book.
Yeah, I must say, you know what, right? I mean, it's quite funny even. Like, you can even finish the book like in a day. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the day I released it, I was delivering.
Yeah.
The first day. So I started early morning. By the time I was going back to the house in the evening, guys had already finished it. So it's a simple book.
And where can people get the book?
You can reach out to me directly.
On Instagram?
On Instagram.
Ama tuweke email hapa.
Unawekanga hapa chini.
Yeah,
you can put my Instagram, even my telephone number.
Oh, your phone number, okay.
Yeah, my phone number. I'm not a seriously busy human being.
Sawa. Tutaweka hapa. And it's a nice
then
book.
there are a few copies in Run Beyond. I don't know if they're still there. I can restock them. But yeah, the books are available. I just decided to... And then another reason I did the book is as I was researching for this information, it was hard to get info out there.
Yeah.
So I decided it's also a good thing to put the story out there. So it's not an instructional book that you should do exactly as I do, but it's my experience. So there are things that you should probably do better. Yeah. If I were to do the training now, I'd probably do it much better. But it's
in what way?
I'd probably improve it quite a lot.
Okay.
Especially on the downhill aspect of it.
Okay.
And core. Build up my core, which is my biggest weakness.
But what about the core?
I never do core exercises.
Okay.
Yeah. I know I need to, but I can't. If I start, I'll probably last 2 sessions, 3 times, or 3 sessions, then that's it.
You know what I find interesting? Like when I was reading the book, you read that, you wrote that you and Victor were the first 2 Kenyans to run this race. Mm-hmm. Have there been any other Kenyans since?
Nope.
Okay.
Now, the advantage is, I got there and people think, you even said it, one of the people who do crazy things. It is not strictly true. I think the advantages we've had is that we've been pioneers in 1 or 2 things locally.
Yeah,
these are things people do out there. For example, I can give examples, ultra marathons. I didn't know any other Kenyan who'd done a 100-miler before I did it.
Oh, okay.
Of course, many people do it out there. I didn't know of anybody who'd done anything more than 100 milers when me and Victor did this. The one day Mount Kenya climbs.
Yeah.
I think we did it the first time in 2018 with Victor also. We did it in around 11, 12 hours. From Old Moses to Lenana and back. Now, 12 hours felt like a big deal at that time. I mean, it's 1 day.
Yeah.
It looked huge.
And normally hiking, it's 4 days.
Yes. But you see, that was just being a pioneer because you don't know anybody else who's done it. Then you do it. And then I think another advantage is that I'm not really restricted to what people have done. If I read something or I want to do something, I'll probably go and do it.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do it as one of the pioneers. And you see, when you've done it and know other people have done it, so you'll probably be a reference point at some point. So by the time we did it in 12 hours, that was a very good time. We went back, did it in much faster times. I think right now, the fastest I've been up and down that route is 2 hours, 56 minutes. Almost to Lenana and back.
2 hours?
2 hours, 56.
Wait.
Now, yes.
Moses to Lenana.
No, not and back. Sorry. To Lenana. And back is 5 hours.
Okay. I was like...
No. It's... Hey, apparently.
Moses to Lenana, that's 17 kilometers.
Yeah. That is now 2 hours, 56 minutes.
Wow.
But I can tell you for sure, I know very many people out there who can do it faster. It's only that they have not tried. They are busy running marathons. So
Kenyans?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Not even the elite ones, the recreational ones. But it's because not many people have done it. So at that point, you became the reference points because you were the initial people locally. In fact, I got to I stumbled on some literature that I think in 1994 or 1992, there's a sky race in Mount Kenya. Guys ran all the way up to Lenana. So this thing has been done, but it was guys from out there, Spain, and people do sky running there. Some people do sky running. So they did
sky running is people who run on mountains.
Yes, they ran up mountains. So these things have been done, but now I think locally it's good to also hear local stories. That's why something like this is very important, because now people get to know. Like even in this podcast of yours, so people get to share stories.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's very good that you wrote it. It's a great read. Yep. And speaking about pioneering, because you did like some other crazy challenge last year, the Mount Kenya 3 Routes Challenge.
Oh, yes.
So this challenge is to climb the 3 main routes of Mount Kenya.
Yeah, in under 24 hours.
Sirimon, Chogoria, and Narumuru, up and down. All in under 24 hours.
Yes.
Submitting Lenana 3 times.
Yes. Now, I can tell you how that originated. In 2019, as part of the training process for TDG, I usually runners have this habit of, on your birthday, you run your number of years. Huh?
Okay.
So if you are turning 50, you probably want to run 50
kilometers.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Now, us who are a bit younger then, it becomes, I felt it became easier. If you want to run 36 kilometers, it's not a big deal.
100-mile runs.
So in 2019, for my birthday, I decided, why don't we do a 24-hour challenge? Now, it wasn't about distance. It was just about time, 24 hours. So my idea was, which is not really a serious idea, every minute of my birthday I would be up running or walking or something. So we started at midnight. My birthday is in January. So we started on that day. Yeah. So immediately it struck midnight, we started from Old Moses. So the idea was going to Lenana, coming back, going up, coming back, probably 3 times.
Okay.
I figured 3 times would make the 24 hours. But the idea is, in fact, I wasn't even keen on finishing the 3 times. 24 hours, I'd be on my feet up and down. So we started from Old Moses. I was with Victor also, again. He's always, he's usually one of the people I go out with for those things. So we started Old Moses up, down, first time. Went back up the second time. So at some point, Victor wondered, what's this thing? Are we going up the same route? I think in his mind, he had not pictured it that way.
He was bored.
Yeah, it was boring. So I think he's the one now who brought the idea of the 3 routes. But okay, for that one, we had fixed it. I had fixed it. It was 1 route, up and down, up and down, up and down. So after that, sometime later in the year, we tried the 3 route. Okay. We did it we got lost a few times. Now the idea is, here we are, we're trying to do things that have not been done. We can't really keep a guide with us the entire time. Guides are used to the normal slow movement. So we would now depend on ourselves. We were used to the Sirimon route, a bit of the Narumuru route. We'd never been down Chogoria route. So we'd load maps on our watch and then go up, down Narumuru, up, down Chogoria, up, back to Old Moses. Now, at that point, we were really learning. I think we were just learning because we didn't have, like me, I didn't have proper gear. It was very bad. I suffered from the cold. We weren't used to nutrition. So the things like nutrition. Nutrition is a very, very key factor in those long adventures. You need to know what works for you. You need to know when to eat. Even sometimes you don't feel like eating, but you have to. By the time you experience, you know that if I don't do it at this point, at some point I'm going to, bonk out. And it's very hard on mental, especially when you're full, when your energy levels go down, mentally you're down. So we're also learning nutrition, we're learning gear, we're learning everything. So the second time, even managing sleep, because at some point you even sleepwalk. So the second time, did we get lost? Yeah, we got lost.
So the first time, the second time when you completed the thing.
No, okay. The first time on the 3 route, we got lost.
Okay.
The second time, we ran out of time.
Okay.
We were almost down to Chogoria, but situation was ilikuwa ni kubaya. The cold, Anyway, and Victor had to get back to Nairobi. So the second time we didn't finish. The first time we didn't finish. The second time we didn't finish. The third time we finished in around 41 hours.
41?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first time we completed it. Then now, for my 2021 birthday, I decided, let's do the 3 route in under 24 hours. It was a bit ambitious, but yeah.
So before we, like, what were the diet mistakes you made in those other ones, and then maybe you fixed it now, the 2021 challenge?
Diet. Okay, what I really learned is that at some point you can't even keep food down, and that's what I'm learning even until now.
Okay.
So at some point you need to have simple sugars that you can easily take in. Now that was the initial thing I thought, so I started carrying a lot of gels. Then you realize that those gels don't go down. They're terrible. At some point they're really, really terrible. So you have to find something that you can easily, ingest without a problem. Something like Coke. Me, if I take Coke, it's fine.
Okay.
Coke, the drink. If I take Coke, it's fine. I can hold it down. There's recently I've been experimenting with the glucose ile tulikuwa tunalamba hivi. Add with ORS. I feel like I can take it down. So it gets to a point I just put a lot of glucose and the ORS, and it can give me energy.
So no solid food?
At that point you don't want solid food. You, at some point, either because of altitude or you've just been on the training for a long time, and then at some point you also need what are they called? Ima food zenye ziko na ladha.
Ziko na?
Food yenye iko na ladha inaitwa nini? Forgotten the term.
Spicy food?
Not spicy. There's a term I've forgotten.
Okay.
But yeah, something like, something like a sausage.
Just tasty food. Salty.
Not even tasty. So it has to be salty, and it's not the carbs.
Okay.
So at that point you don't want TTCG to chapati umebeba or a pancake or something. But anyway, that's me. Something like
bacon.
Bacon. Actually, bacon is very good.
Okay.
Huh?
Beef jerky. Oh yeah.
Yeah, things like
the
those.
Dried meat.
Yeah. So there's a term, English ni ngumu, imepotea. Savory foods. Yeah. So savory comes in very, very handy at that point. When I realized when I no longer can take food, if I have something savory, then like a soup, you have some nice soup ya nyama, like itakuwa imekuwa baridi anyway.
Yeah.
So things like that can make you take in more food. So in a 24-hour race like the Mount Kenya one, where you don't have aid stations that you can get those things, you need to have an alternative. For like TDG, it was easy because the aid stations had a wide variety of foods. So anyway, we were learning those. You get to learn. Actually, even until today, I'm still learning nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah. So the second time we tried now to complete was last year when we decided to do the 24-hour. Yeah, that was also a big one.
And the 24-hour, you're the only one who managed, because you are 4 of you that were doing it.
Yeah, there were 4 of us. Of course, it's not that physically they're not able to do it. One of them got an injury. I mean, it was just, the mountain is also unpredictable. Like even this year, we tried again, but I got an injury. I couldn't finish. But last year I managed to finish just under 24 hours.
And like, I'm just curious, like how you, is this the same preparation like for 24 hours? Like the Table Mountain 4 times?
No.
The reps in Longonot?
The 24 hour is easy. You can even go without preparation. As long as you are at a good level of fitness. You see, a good thing with 24 hours, okay, it's gotten to a point where I feel 24 hours is a manageable time. It's not too long a time. You can basically manage 24 hours quite easily. Yeah. So 24 hours you can easily manage. And then the mountain is not monotonous. So you're going up. Once you're up that route, you're concentrating on going down the next route. So when you're going down, it's easy. In fact, what I usually do when I'm going down, my mind is usually all over the place, so I don't feel it. My mind wanders and all that. So by the time I'm realizing I have to concentrate again, I'm coming back up.
And most
so
of the
time moves very fast.
You're like alone, and it's
exactly.
It's dark. So so you use your watch to guide you. Yeah,
you have to have your navigation, and you have to know how to navigate. I realize there's a difference with having navigation on your watch and actually knowing when to navigate, how to navigate, especially when now you're lost because you panic. There's a time I was with Victor and Muhia. We were doing the 3 route. Which time was this? I've forgotten. So we go to Lenana. We're going down Naromuru. So when you're going down Naromuru, you know those ropes, eh?
Yeah.
There's a split. There's one that comes directly up Lenana, the one goes a little bit to the side. Eh? So I went down, then I took the one that goes to the side. It was probably around 3 a.m. So I took the wrong route. I started going down the other route. Probably was going back to Sirimon. But looking at my navigation, I'm going the proper way. Because the navigation, the way it is like it's like a 3 point thing. So however you're going, you're in the right direction. So you could be going this way and you're supposed to go this way. But it's going there. So by the time I'm realizing I'm probably lost, I'm wondering, but my navigation is okay. So anyway, I realized and I started coming back up. But at that point, you can also panic. And if you panic and you can't navigate, then it becomes a problem. So you also know how to navigate. There's another point, we were using Victor's navigation, it froze, we were lost in the mist. So those things happen. So you also have to have good presence of mind. I think actually good presence of mind is one of the most important things.
To keep calm.
Yeah, you have to keep calm. You relax, you try to reorganize your thoughts and get back. What was your question again?
And I was seeing, like for the 3 route challenge, you did 23 hours and 50 minutes.
23:43.
23:43.
Yep.
And you think like you can do faster?
Yep.
Like how much faster?
Much faster. And it's not very tough to go under probably. I don't want to say the time, but it's probably not even me. A few people can do it much faster.
Like 20 hours?
Even 20 hours. Depends on how motivated you are.
So that means up and down, like 7 hours, like that?
Yeah.
So do you think it can be like an official like race, like how TDG is? So now, like Mount Kenya 3 routes challenge, because you've pioneered this kind of thing.
Now, making it a race would be, I don't think I would advocate for that. Making it a challenge where somebody just decides you want to go and do it is fine.
Yeah.
But making it a race, there are too many dynamics that you need to take care of. First of all, it's very technical. Getting injured is very easy. So you don't want somebody who's not able to take care of themselves getting injured at night somewhere along the route. It's dangerous. So I totally wouldn't advocate as a race. You have to be probably mentally prepared to go and do it. So on an individual basis or on a group basis, you want to go and do a challenge, it's fine. But you have to know the dangers and the risks. Because it's actually one of the problems is the technicality. And then doing 3 route, definitely at some point you'll be up there at night. It's very cold. It could be those icy winds of negative 20 degrees probably. So you want people who are very, very well prepared to do that kind of thing. So if it's a race, you'd need to have aid stations. You probably need to have somewhere up there above maybe 4,700 meters. And then these races out there, they have tracking. You carry a tracking thing on you. So like TDG, along the way, you in Kenya, you could follow me. You'd know where I am. And what people usually do is that you know the map. So if you see someone has gone off the map, even you are here, you can see I've gone off the map in Italy. You can actually see, hey, something is wrong. It's been off the map for 2 hours. Yeah, actually people do that. Okay. People get lost and somebody is tracking somewhere and even the race organizers are able to see you've lost track or you've stayed at some point for a very long time. Then they figure out maybe something is a problem. So if you are to have it as a race, you probably need those tracking so that you're able to manage those kinds. Because Mount Kenya is very technical and cold. So routes like Chogoria, no, not Chogoria, like Naromoru, very technical. So
as a challenge, because also I tried it as a challenge, but not the way you did. I did like 3 routes, but now in 3 days. I was thinking that's like a hiker-friendly one.
Yeah, it's still a challenge.
But-
Actually, yours is more enjoyable because you're in no hurry, so you get to enjoy the mountain better. I think one of the reasons we do the speed climbs, and I'll speak for myself, is not even because of records. At some point, it became economical to go to the mountain for one day and be back in Nairobi.
Yeah.
I know I did the normal 3 days. I've done my Kilimanjaro the normal 6 days.
Yeah.
I've done Rwenzori the normal 7 days.
Yeah.
In fact, Rwenzori is even 10 days because there's traveling days and all that kind of thing. But now for me to keep, now when we started training for TDG, it was more economical to go and try do as much as possible in one day and come back to Nairobi. So being an 8 to 5 person, from Monday to Friday, it's also quite economical to try and just go and do it in one day and back. But if I had the chance, I'd probably be doing them more, luxuriously. Pole on a camp, you explore ways of the normal route. It makes it more interesting.
And this 3 routes challenge, you tried it again this year. Will it be like an annual thing?
Okay, it could be. But even if it's not an official annual thing, I'll probably do it in many other times in the future. Even this year, I'll probably do it again.
This year, okay.
I'm thinking of doing it again this year.
24 hours.
Because I didn't finish in January. So I'm probably going to do it again. I've not decided when, probably November, December, or October.
So you don't want to do it again because you want to finish it?
Yeah, yes, because I want to finish it.
Muhimu. And other things you've pioneered, you also did the Aberdares Traverse.
Yeah. Aberdares was interesting. That's one of the most memorable things I've done. It was awesome. And the beauty with that is that, you see, you're involved from the word go. You're not using a route anyone has ever used. You have to go to Google Map and look at tours and try to create a route. It's very interesting. I loved the entire preparation, end to end. You have to know what to carry for the entire 3 days, because you'll be in the middle of the forest. You don't have the luxury of going to look for new supplies. So you'd have to carry the entire gear.
To self-supported.
Yeah, fully self-supported. And then now, and that's probably the first time we were doing it. So it was very interesting. So we had to carry everything from the tents.
Before you did it, did you know of anyone who'd done this before?
No. I had heard there are people who had tried to do it, but they were using this other flank. Is it the northern or?
Kosatima.
Ya kupita huku kwa peaks huku juu huku.
From which direction?
You probably get to Mutubio Gate, then now you also try to connect with
in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. So as we went down, I figured it would be easier to go down. Not easier, it would be more interesting because there are waterfalls down there and more rivers, and more scenic. But we didn't even do it as per our plan because you were to go all the way down to Akinakaruru Falls, then now get into more jungle and tokelezea huku.
Your starting point was Jabini.
Jabini, yes.
Then you climb Elephant Hill.
Yes. Then we
go to Kinangop.
We set our first camp at Kinangop. That's the first day. That was the toughest. Was it the toughest day?
Yeah,
because it was all
carrying
climb.
Everything.
No, we're carrying everything the entire time.
Yeah.
But that was now climb. So it was quite tough. I'm not sure if it was the toughest day, but it was tough in its own way because you were climbing. That was the entire climb. Then we set camp. Now the following day was now bushwhacking, proper bushwhacking. At that point is when you realize the map you have on your watch. Of course, we tried to use contours, the many geographies that we learned in high school. You're trying to use the contour lines for making sure you don't get to a cliff, things like that.
Yeah.
Also, we're trying using the satellite imagery to avoid forested areas.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the kind of grassy areas, which was a mistake because now we go to, what are they called? Those two mini grass.
The tussock.
The tussock. Oh, that was the toughest. So by mapping, we were trying to now use the tussock because it wouldn't be forest. But now it was much tougher. So as you go now, you improvise, which was a nice thing because now you get to improvise. You see the map is leading you this way, but you decide you just take a tangent, then turn back. Then the second night, we didn't even get to where we were supposed to. We had set places that we would camp. Night 1, night 2,
Just
night
in
3.
the bush.
Yeah, but generally where we would. So we couldn't get where we wanted. So we camped somewhere. Then there were a lot of safari ants, things, rain. It was quite interesting. Then the following day, we had to now take a road because we felt we wouldn't be able to finish in time because we had to be back to Nairobi and to work on Monday, the usual. So we couldn't take the tougher route that we had to take. So we are probably going back, but we'll start now. We'll drive into the park to a place called, there's a hut called what?
Supper hut.
Supper hut. Then I will create another route from there. So the good thing with such adventures is that you have to improvise. You actually don't get what you wanted. You don't get to finish it as you planned. So I find them to be very interesting. Then I like the idea of self-support, carrying everything on your back. You're able to still to take care of yourself. Nobody carrying anything for you. So it's a good.
So you carry the tents, food, and you're 4 of you. 1 ranger and 3 adventurers.
Yes. But you learned a lot because I think we overpacked. There are things that you wouldn't use by the time you get back to Nairobi. You're carrying 3 t-shirts and a change of pants.
So that's useless. We're too much.
It's useless. You wear the same pants for the same 3 days. 4 days.
Okay.
Because at a change of, you have 2 jackets. So what's the point? So anyway, there were even the food you were carrying. You end up but what I would advise anyone is better overpack on food. Now that one, don't.
Kama chakula ulibeba nini?
Chakula, we carried chapatis, baked beans. We did carry sausages. Now the good thing is up the mountain nothing goes bad. It's cold. So it was self-preservation, natural preservation. So hata kama umebeba whatever it is, you'll say the 3 days, it doesn't go bad. But generally, if you look at people who've done this and you read their stories, they tend to carry dried foods, which now makes it lighter. But even after that, now I looked for a smaller tent that can fit into my bag because the tent I had, I found it to be very heavy. So if I went today, my load would be much lighter than it was at that time.
And you'd still do it like as a self-supported?
Yeah. I think once you've gone to self-supported, you don't go back.
Because after seeing your traverse, I was very fascinated about it. But then I also I did it beginning of this year, but now I wanted it supported. Unajua porters, tukuwe na chef, tukifika camp. Yeah.
Yes. So you would work with them the entire time.
So how I planned it, you started from the south to north.
Yeah.
So for me, I planned it from the north to south. I saw it starting from Satima would be easier than starting at Elephant. So day 1 started Satima till Rurimeria. So that's Satima, Table Mountain, Rurimeria. Now the porters, instead of walking with us the whole way, they started the trek from Rurimeria.
Then they meet you up there.
Then they meet us at the Rurimeria, kwa summit hapo. Then we set up our camp there. Then the second day, they'd go back down with our gear. Then I had a driver.
Okay.
A driver to drive all the gear to Mutubio Gate. Because day 2 was now Rurimeria till Mutubio. Then we set up the camp there. And then now, day 3 now, it was just to finish from Mutubio to Kinangob, Elephant,
down.
and then Jabini. So
Yeah, that's very comfortable. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, but I learned a lot from your experience because now also you wrote stories for your traverse.
Yep.
And then I was seeing those challenges for the self-supported. And then I was seeing, can I... Because I didn't really want to spend the night in the middle of nowhere. So I kind of wanted some kind of safe-ish place.
What do you mean? See, you're spending the night in the middle of nowhere. It's only that you're getting support to people are bringing things there, but it's the same thing.
Well, it's in the middle of nowhere, but kuna network. And if there's anything wrong, you can go down in 3 hours.
Okay. Anyway,
But-
it's still the same thing. It's only that you are getting support from porters. But where you're staying with versus where we're staying, it's the same thing, essentially the same thing. But I think what you need to do is what is comfortable with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advocate for everyone to self-support.
Yeah.
It's heavy and, you're walking the entire day. You don't know where you're going. You may decide to get to the middle of nowhere and decide to bail out. Can't bail out. Can't turn back. Anyway, you do what is comfortable with you.
Through my mind,
Yep. It's cut your coat according to your cloth.
Yeah. But self-support, I find like the hikers I've talked with, they really want to do it like self-supported.
It's very
adventurous. That's like the true.
Of course, you should have all your contingency plans, such that if this happens, then you can be able to fall back to this. Like us, of course, we went with a ranger, so you can't do such things without a ranger. At some point, there was an elephant in the middle of the forest, and you see it's now forested kabisa, so you can't even see. So it's even the rangers told her to stop. There's something here, you couldn't even tell. Then an elephant had actually stopped foraging to find out what the heck are these people doing here. So it had stopped still as we stopped, then it ran away. Something like that, Of course, you need to take care of your, risks.
Yeah, for sure.
So if part of your risk is that you may get to a point and your mental capacity fails you and you decide I'm not moving any further, you have to have a way of bailing out. But self-support is interesting. I love it.
And also the kind of people like you go with, you have to trust them. So
Oh, yeah. Generally, you don't want to be a liability to your team. Of course, anything can happen to anyone. But generally, at the point of starting, you need to know that you're able to do it. So that in case anything happens, it's an accident, then that's different.
So what are the future challenges, something that you'll pioneer?
Now, I think for me, that's why it's very even hard. It's hard to define me. You can't define me as a runner, as a mountaineer, as a hiker. I think I take adventures as they come.
How would you define yourself?
I don't know. I love the outdoors.
Adventure.
Yeah, something like that.
Pioneer.
I like running. I like climbing mountains. I like the bush. I like probably seeing new places. But if you define me as a runner, you'll miss out. If you define me as a mountaineer, of course, what I'm not is a climber. So the Batians, no, that's not my thing.
You have no ambitions for that?
No. I prefer my feet to be on solid ground.
Okay.
I probably would do it in future, but I'm not keen. I'm not particularly keen.
And in the near future, what do you plan on doing?
That's something I really don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Oh, okay.
Probably climb a few mountains. Okay, what is not getting out of sight?
3 routes challenge.
No. Kilimanjaro logistically is not very friendly for the different routes, so I'm not keen on doing that. If logistically it was friendly, then why not? But I'm not really keen on Kilimanjaro 3 route or things. Kilimanjaro, we've done the speed climb one day up and down, which I probably would have done this year again, but I had an injury. But yeah, I want to climb. Okay, what I really want to do is probably climb a few more mountains, visit a few more countries, those kinds of things. So I'm not really particularly on a certain one direction,
Okay. Interesting. So the next segment of the podcast is answering your question segment. This is where my Instagram audience asks questions for you. And yeah. Unajua what the most popular question is? Wacha tu that'll be the first question. So, question 1. Uko na mtu?
Is it the same person who usually asks that question?
I mean, I don't know why people like these questions. But it's like the number 1 question for every guest.
Oh dear. So how do I answer that question? I'm not very good with personal questions.
Okay.
In fact, one of the feedback I got from the book is that it's a whole book you should have said about you. Why you didn't say anything about yourself? So naturally, I'm a private human being. Ukiniuliza on the side takwambia.
Okay. Why take yourself through the pain?
Yeah, that's a good question. It can't be answered that way it has been asked. I think the way to answer it is, what is the pain exactly?
Injuries.
No injury is not pain. That is, a byproduct of what you are doing. You don't expect to get an injury. So an injury will come and you will feel like, it's derailing you. But what you feel as pain, for me, may not be pain. Because if you tell me I'm doing the 24-hour and you feel like I'm out in the cold, I have ways of mitigating that. I have proper gear. If you tell me I am subjecting myself to, physical trauma or something, I feel like I'm well trained or I'm training. I feel like my mind is in a good place. So even when I'm suffering physically, I find my mind to be in a very solid state of, place. So you ignore your physical pain. The pain that is there is only injury. Umeumia huko juu and you have to get back to base. But generally, I don't consider it to be pain. Actually, what I consider to be pain is having to wake up on a Saturday at 4 a.m. when I'm not being forced. When I'm going to work on a weekday, I wake up, if I'm not running, I wake up at 7. Why would I wake up on a weekend at 4? Saturday and Sunday. Now that's the pain. But the activity itself is enjoyable. What you feel as physical pain, I think, is compensated. There's usually what is called also delayed gratification. So I will run up from Old Moses to Lenana at some point, especially from Shipton to the summit. You feel like your heart wants to probably pop out of your chest kabisa. I usually tell people I feel my heart here because usually I feel it here. But now when I get up there and I look at my watch, I'll forget the pain. So it's not really pain. There's that delayed gratification and then state of mind. So it's very hard to say there's pain.
What motivates you?
That's a hard question. It's really a hard question. I don't know. I just do it. Plus, I've said, I think the state of mind puts me in a very good state of mind.
And how do you get that?
I like being alone. I think I'm alone also. I like being alone on the mountain. Even if you're with someone, probably I'm not very good at conversation, so I'll probably not even be speaking. So I'm just alone with my thoughts. My mind wanders a lot, so I like open spaces, so to speak.
How do you build that strong mindset?
I'm not sure how to. Okay, the building I try to do on a mindset is toleration of pain. Like when I go to Longonot, I already know from the day before, I already feel like it's weighing down on me. I'm already feeling the pain of that repetition, even before I get there. Even that week when I know I'm going this weekend to Longonot to do those reps, I don't like it. But up to the time I even start doing it, it's a tough thing. So by the time I build it up to doing it's very boring. Trust me, it's extremely boring. There's so many people coming up and down. They'll ask you 1,000 questions. There'll be a lot of dust. It's just bad. The sun will come out. But at the end of it, I feel like, I can do 10 hours on this stretch of 400 meters. I feel so achieved, because I don't think I also have a very good focus. My mind tend to wanders a lot. I'm not very good at concentrating on a task for a very long time. So when I build that, I know that if you give me a race of 200 kilometers, I'll be in a good state physically. If you give me a 200-kilometer race, my mental state will not be a problem, because as long as it's not round as a track, I'll have so many things to distract me. So that will not be but now physically I need to go to Longonot and do those many reps. So that is helping you build up to something else. So I think that's how I can tolerate it.
Alafu nimeambiwa nikugote.
Nani?
Alafu nikushow wewe ni superhero. Bless.
Thanks. Now, you see, that's where it comes in, the superhero thing. Let me tell you a story. People know I'm very strong. Sometimes it can even get to my head. I feel like I'm actually Minio Jama. But let me tell you, I don't know where you grew up. I grew up in Nandi. When I was a young boy, every boy wants to be the macho guy. You're in standard. Whatever you're doing, if you're playing football, if you are running, you always put your best. And I can tell you for sure, hizo sijui ati kukimbia tulikuwa tunakimbia ati cross country. And you put in your best, but I was never in the top 50%. You know? So even now, I know I'm a very realistic human being. I know my capability compared to other people's capability is just average. That's why, guys, I know guys who can run marathons very fast. Like, anakuambia kina Davis. You know, kina Thuo. Those guys are able. I started them used to beat them in marathon. Right now, I can never even come close to them. Anyway, but it's a good thing to feel like we're strong. I think it's also the pioneering spirit to being able to do things that maybe you are among the first to do. But over time, you'll feel now many people are coming to do them, and you'll now see guys actually strong out there.
How did you practice for the 3 Routes Challenge? Okay, I think you mentioned like some, but in general, how would someone practice?
Do a lot of up and down, and do a lot of technical. So up and down, of course, if you are training to go to Mount Kenya, the best place to train would be Mount Kenya. But inability to go there, go to Longonot. The advantage with Longonot, it's mostly tougher than Mount Kenya because of the heat. The disadvantage is on the altitude, so you won't really train on high altitude. And the other disadvantage is on technicality of the trail. There are no rocks, but it will your muscles for going up and down, they'd be well tested. So, and do a lot of reps. What I usually do, 3 routes will give you up to 6,000 meters elevation gain. So for that, in fact, like last year before we went to the 3 route, I went to Longonot, I think 2-3 weekends. I do 2,000 meters. I make sure I do 2,000 meters elevation or 3,000 elevation. That's good training, so that you make sure you've done some substantial elevation before you get there. So that if you're doing 6,000, for me, I tell myself I need to have done around 3,000 in training in one sitting. And then one thing that I know people don't do, but I feel like it really helps me because I'm prone to injuries, I do a lot of stairs when I really train. So I go up and down stairs. And when you're doing stairs, make sure you come down using the stairs. Don't use the elevator. So also treadmill.
Treadmill
is one of the worst things invented by man. But it's one of the most helpful. When I am on a treadmill in the gym, I become a curiosity to people. Because I usually set it on the highest elevation gain. I can't go to the treadmill to do a flat. I'll run out there. So there's no incentive for me to go to a treadmill and do a flat.
So the highest
I do, which is usually 15 degrees.
Okay.
Or 10 to 15, but sometimes 15. Then I'll walk. Now, in fact, that one is important. I forgot to mention. Walking. For this training of ultramarathons, you should train to walk. It sounds weird, but you need to train to walk. Some people will walk from start to finish of 100 mile, and they'll finish before you who started running. And I realized that when I did the 100 miler and the 96 kilometer. Some people will not even be interested to run at any point. They'll power walk the entire time. But the way they are walking. So I started also learning to walk on treadmill. When I'm doing 15, then I run a bit, walk, run. Those are the kinds of training probably that work for me.
Do you have titanium knees?
Now, the funny thing, when I was running road marathons, I used to get knee injuries. Now I don't get knee injuries. Actually, I don't remember the last time I had knee injury. Because of mountains. I don't know why. I really don't understand. But when I used to do road, I used to get knee injuries.
So even if you're descending fast, Kosawa?
And Kosawa, I say in Kosawa.
Wow.
I think the last time I got an injury is, I don't know, probably 2-3 years ago. I don't remember.
How long was the Njabini to Rhino get Aberdares Traverse? And what were the costs?
Okay. How long in terms of?
I think the distance.
Time or distance? Distance, it came to 90 kilometers? Was it 96? Something like that?
Yeah, 96.
around 86 kilometers. We took 3 days. The cost. The major part of the cost was, you pay the ranger per day, which was around, we were splitting the costs, everything was splitting the costs. So we pay, I don't remember, around 3,000 per day, I'm not very sure. Then there was the normal gear preparation. Pack fees was not very expensive. It's how much was it at that time? Around 200 something.
Yeah, like 300 per day, yeah. Then camping
for 3 days.
fee.
And camping fee. I don't know. If I put a total amount, I'd probably say I spent around 15,000.
Per person?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We coupled, we left our car with someone. Then we got to the other end. We told them the time we would expect to get to the other end and exit. Of course, we didn't. It didn't work like that, but we were not too far off. So transport we usually coupled generally. So that one was taken care of. So we chunk our fuel. So also gear. Okay, most of the gear I had, for example, was gear I'd carried over from previous, activities. So I didn't buy specific gear for that trip. But after the trip, I bought gear now for such similar trips. So after that trip, I bought a very compact tent that fits into my bag. I don't have to, funga it in a bag or something like that. So for the trip, I'd say I spent around 15,000.
That's not bad, because when I did mine, okay, supported. It was like
no, supported.
38 per
that
person.
One, ongeza zingine mingi sana.
Okay. So self-supported 15,000, then you have all the gears and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And the food, of course, the food is not too expensive, depending on what you're getting.
Okay. This one is, how do you stay strong mentally, and what do you do to recover after a tough challenge?
Recovered drink.
Baada, sorry.
In fact, sometimes the only thing you're looking forward to, especially, the mountains are a problem. Going up is interesting, but now going back that same route is now the hardest, because you've done what you wanted, you've achieved what you wanted, now it's going back down. You have to cover all that same distance. It's annoying. So now what drives you is what is waiting for you, a beer or something. What was the other question? Mentally. How do I keep myself strong mentally? Okay, I think my advantage, I'll be honest here. I may not be strong physically, but my advantage, which is also annoying to other people, is that when I start going, I want to keep going. I don't like stopping. So if you're doing a 24-hour, if I'm alone and I'm doing a 24-hour challenge, I'll probably not stop unless it's very important. But at Inismame, I can probably just walk the entire thing or just keep going. I don't sit to rest. I prefer managing my effort. So I'm not very good at going hard. In fact, when you start with people, these guys I usually run with, like in a Victor, in a limo, when you start with them, I usually feel like they're pushing too much. But it's because I'm slower at that point. But now when I get warmed up, I maintain a comfortable pace and I can keep going. As opposed to, I find many people I do these activities with, they'll want to stop. They say, let's have a 10-minute rest or a 5-minute rest or a 3-minute. I don't like those ones. So mentally, I feel like I'm the kind of person, if I start going, I just keep going until the end of it. That's why I don't like events. There's some races which people like I don't know if you've heard of the one in Morocco. It's called what? Marathon Disables, something like that. Where it's a stage race. You do a certain number of kilometers the same day. One day, then you spend a night somewhere. You do a second day, spend a night somewhere. Those ones I've not entered because I don't like those. I want, if I start to go, back animalism, ndio ni relax.
Okay.
Yeah. So mentally, I think I have that ability to keep going, which is an advantage I have. I may not be strong physically, but when I start going, I just want to keep going until I get to the end of it.
How often do you run?
I prefer running 5. That's my ideal. Working out 5 days a week. But the reality is not like that. Like right now, I'm training for a race. I'm supposed to be training for a race. But in the last 2 weeks, I've run only 3 times because I have injuries, those road injuries. So I prefer running 5 days a week. But the reality is that sometimes I may be 3 days a week. Sometimes it's 0 days a week, depending on what's going on. During winter, it was very hard for me to wake up. Of course, winter was the last 1 month.
Our Kenyan winter.
Yeah. It was very hard to wake up. It was extremely hard. Every single day, my alarm would go off as usual. I think the last 1 month, it's been really tough. So it depends also on many other factors. I'm not very good at sticking to a schedule. That's one of my problems. So I'm good at probably sticking to a schedule when there's a race I'm training for. So if there's no race, I'm not going to have a schedule.
What's your diet like?
Now, diet-wise, I eat everything. I really don't discriminate food. So I particularly have no specific diet. I eat what I want.
Nyama,
Yeah,
chapo,
I like meat.
chips.
Yeah, but my diet is, seasonal. Like, I don't like chapo now. I don't know why. But generally, in terms of managing calories or such things, I am not big on that.
Also anything.
Yeah, so whatever I like.
What goes on your mind while running? Is it about the next step or the finish line?
If I'm running a marathon, what goes on in my mind is the pain.
What pain? Physically?
Well, marathons are pain. When I'm in the mountain, no, that one I wouldn't call it running. When I'm doing a mountain challenge, my mind really wanders. By the way, I'm one person whose mind is all over the place. So depending on my effort level, if I'm putting a lot of effort, I'll concentrate on the task. If my effort level is stepped down, then my mind just wanders. Yep.
How did you start? Did you start like small runs as you build up?
In fact, my initial runs, as I said, was for the hiking, Mount Kenya, in preparation to Mount Kenya. And then after that, Kilimanjaro. I used to run 4 kilometers. I remember very well. From where I used to live, it was along Thika Road, just along Thika Road.
Okay.
2 kilometers out, 2 kilometers back. I used to do it probably 3 or 4 times. But the intention was very specific, just to some level of fitness for hiking. It wasn't really running at that point. So my running will... after that, it now graduated when I started running to training for marathons. Then it basically just increased.
Okay. What's your worst mountain experience? Worst experience on a mountain?
Let me try to think. Worst experience on the mountain. Now, surprisingly, nothing comes to mind. I've had some challenging experiences. I wouldn't call them bad. I've gotten lost on the mountain. I've gotten extremely cold. Now, that one I have to... The first time I did that 3-route thing for my birthday, you are 1 day up, chini hapo hiyo moja hiyo. I'd go to a point I could not... I think it's even in the book. It got to a point I was so sleepy. I was so cold. At that point, I didn't have proper gear. It was my initial days in learning this night thing. Even night activities, I wasn't sure of them. Actually, part of the training now for these long distances is also how to move at night, which is a totally new, different scenario. So I walk a few meters, I get sleepy. Basically, your eyes close, literally, just close as you're walking. But the mountain is dangerous. You can hit a rock and injure yourself. Then I'd sit down to take a nap, probably 2 minutes. Immediately I sit down, temperatures are almost 0. It gets extremely cold. So I think at that point I actually got afraid. I got very afraid because it was my first time doing a night activity on the mountain. I was alone. I was probably at that point 7 kilometers from Old Moses. It was probably around 2 a.m. And then I was running out of food. I think I got afraid at that point. I didn't know. Anyway, I think that's one of the challenges I faced. But I've not had a bad experience as a per se bad experience, just challenges which are manageable.
Okay. Then ultras are prone to injuries. How do you evade injuries? And if you get one, how do you tend to them?
I do not think ultra doing ultras you get prone to injuries? Actually, don't think so. Unless they are road ultras. I think marathon running is why road running is why you're prone to injuries. And I'm saying just that just because I've tried both. Whenever I'm into road running, I get so many injuries. Whenever I'm into mountain or trail running, less injuries. But I attribute it to the diversity of terrain in mountain running or trail running. You're either going up, so you use different muscles. You activate different muscles, use them differently. You don't just engage the same muscle groups entire time. So I think it balances out. You're up, you're down. You have to navigate, rocks and stuff like that. So I think that's my idea. I think that's what makes it better.
Interesting. And
so what you're going to get is probably impact injuries. You're going to hit your toe on a rock. You're going probably to twist your ankle. So impact injuries, really, not overuse injuries. Yeah.
And I've noticed, like, with ultra runners, you all wear shorts.
No.
Hata kwa summit ni shorts.
I think it's what you're comfortable with. For me, I feel like anyway, okay, your legs don't have any organs that are at risk. If you get cold, you don't have a heart or a lung that will be affected.
Can deal with itself.
So you can see me in a short upper mountain, but I have gear for my upper body. I have proper gear for my upper body. That one I don't compromise. So I have to have a warm jacket. I have to have a waterproof. My legs can take care of themselves. Hizo zina shida. But now ukifika huko kwa toes, huko ndio kuna shida. Now, in fact, I think now I have the bad experience. Bad experience.
Remembered.
Yeah. Inaitwa nini? Frostbite. Kwanza kwa vidole ya mguu. I've had frostbite where I just feel like my toes are going to now die. Yani. And I fear frostbite a lot because I've seen people lose their toes. And so that's one thing I fear, frostbite.
And the last one, do you ever worry about your knees when you grow older?
Contrary to what people think, I don't even overdo. If you look at my annual and monthly mileage, they're not so much.
Really?
Yeah. Try and compare. My mileage is not as much as people would think. I probably do an average of 300 kilometers a month.
Running?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
You think it's a lot. Now look at people who do marathons. They probably run 400 kilometers a month, 500 kilometers a month.
Athletes?
No, athletes, our elite athletes, those ones do 600 plus an hour.
Okay.
But even my 300 is not all on road. So it's varied. So I'm not worried about my knees.
Utakuwa sawa.
Kwa sawa mimi.
Any final message for your fans?
Yeah, the outside is a beautiful place. Yeah, I think the exposure is just out of this world. So for me, I think also what needs to be done is stories needs to be told. I realize also why people think I am what I am is because I tell stories. And my stories have just been repeated because apart from the book, I used to write those two PDF pieces. There are people out there who've not told their stories. They've done serious things. I've told you about the guy who I started reading his stories, who did the first person to do the World Marathon Majors. That guy called Waliaula. If you look at the runners right now, they don't know him. But he's the first. Those are the people who pioneered these things. People, you see, everybody now want to go to do the marathon majors, but now their stories have not been told. Okay, some people are very private. So mtu kama wewe sasa waite wakuja waseme story hapa.
Okay.
So
we'll find
it's a very good thing. When the information is out there, it opens up our world. There are places in Kenya you don't know exist. Like now, those lakes we are doing these days on Mount Kenya. That was an idea by Victor. At some point, he just said, we do the lakes. Then we took like forever to start doing them. Me, I never even thought of lakes. Now, I don't even want to go to Lenana. I just want to go and explore those other sides of the mountain. So you'll find that people have great ideas. When they share them, then it exposes your world. You stop doing the monotonous things you're doing. Yep.
Oh, so Cheruiyot,
Asante
cheers for
sana.
coming.
I feel like I've talked too much.
It was good. And that's our episode.
Thank you very much.
See you on the next one.
Okay.